Next, we have osmoregulation or water balance. And water balance is just to prevent dehydration, mainly to stop dehydration. But also, if you are overly hydrated, then also your body can try to remove more water from your body, and this is happening in the kidneys. So this is where it begins. Let's start with dehydration. With dehydration, let's say now your water level start to decrease in the blood, and if your water levels decrease in your blood, then the pituitary gland, which is your control center, will now be able to do what? To detect that your blood levels, your water levels in the blood has decreased, so it will therefore secrete more ADH, right? So water levels in the blood and the tissues are low whenever your water level decreases, and that is normally due to either when you are exercising or on a hot day, or you have increased sweating, or you haven't taken any water. So now these low water levels in the blood are therefore detected by what you call osmoreceptors. We had chemoreceptors, now you also have what is known as osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus first, right? So I know I did say now the pituitary gland, but now it is first detected in the hypothalamus, then the hypothalamus will therefore send an impulse to the pituitary gland to secrete more ADH. So if I can try to just do a quick diagram so that you can understand what I'm talking about. If this is the brain, of course you have your pituitary gland here, and then this is your brain again. Now here's your hypothalamus up here, right? So on the hypothalamus, of course, blood is passing through the hypothalamus. So the blood is passing through the hypothalamus. So when the blood is passing through the hypothalamus, the hypothalamus is able to detect the decrease or the increase of water levels in the blood. So if there is low water levels, there is what we call osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus. So this is your hypothalamus, and this will be your pituitary gland, right? So your hypothalamus is going to now detect this through what we call the osmoreceptors, and these osmoreceptors are going to send an impulse to the pituitary gland. Then the pituitary gland will therefore secrete more ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So hopefully that diagram there will help you understand. So we have the hypothalamus that has osmoreceptors. These osmoreceptors detect the levels of water, and if there's low levels of water, the osmoreceptors will detect it, and the hypothalamus will send the impulse to the pituitary gland. Then the pituitary gland will secrete more ADH. Now that more ADH has been secreted, because these impulses are sent to the pituitary gland, more ADH is therefore secreted. If more ADH is secreted, then ADH basically it promotes the permeability of collecting ducts as well as the distal convoluted tubules, which I'm going to show you just now, and therefore more water will be absorbed into the blood and back to normal water levels. Now the hormone is transported to the blood, in the blood, to the effector organ, which is your kidneys, your target organs. So the ADH after it has been secreted, it must go to the kidneys. And in the kidneys, this is where it is going to promote permeability and reabsorption of the blood, of the water into the blood. Reabsorption of H2O. Right, so now let's have a look at what I am mentioning here, because it is very much important to see it diametrically, just to see the diagram and be able to understand what is happening. So now that the permeability of the distal tubule as well as the collecting duct has been increased, then more water will be reabsorbed and passed into the blood. Then the level of water will increase back to normal. Then you have less water in the urine, so your urine will be concentrated or yellow in color. So let's have a look at the structure inside the kidneys, which we call the nephron. The nephron is where this is where filtration takes place, right? So we have the glomerulus here. This is where your filtration is going to take place, and you have your blood vessels that is surrounding the nephron. The nephron is the brown area here. The brown structure that you see is the nephron, and we spoke about the distal convoluted tubule as well as the collecting tubules or collecting duct. These are the ones that are targeted by ADH. So ADH is going to target these in the kidneys. So if there's more ADH, if there is more ADH, it means these ones are going to be permeable. The distal convoluted tubule as well as the collecting duct. So what do we know about filtration? We know that the blood with impurities, right? The blood with impurities is going to be filtered here, and even the water. So remember, let's say you don't have water in your blood vessels and your body doesn't want to lose all that water. What is going to happen is the following. During filtration, the water will travel through the nephron, starting with the proximal convoluted tubule, and then it's going to travel in this direction like this up until it reaches the loop of Henle. So you still have water inside traveling with impurities through the what? Through the nephron. But now when it arrives here at the distal tubules, now that you are at the distal tubules, this water, it is going to be reabsorbed back into the blood vessels. So water is going to enter the blood vessels. Instead of water being excreted out, the water will be reabsorbed in the blood vessels through what? Through the distal and the collecting tubule. And this is due to more ADH being secreted. ADH causes the walls of these tubules to be permeable. So if it is permeable, it means that it allows water to move out and into the blood vessels, and therefore the water will increase in your blood. And when you have an increase in water in your blood, therefore it will return back to normal. The same applies when now you are having a what? More water if you have more water, then they say now when water levels in the blood or tissue is high, this is due to what? Cooler temperatures, little exercise, no sweating, or if you are drinking more water, the water levels in the blood or tissue will be high, of course, and this is going to be detected by the osmoreceptors. Once again, the osmoreceptors there in the hypothalamus, then the osmoreceptors will send impulses to the pituitary gland, which is right here. And when the pituitary gland receives those impulses, in this case now it will release, or it will secrete less ADH. And when you are having less ADH, what does that mean for us? It means that there will be less permeability. So these impulses are sent to the pituitary gland, less antidiuretic hormone is secreted, and the distal tubules as well as the collecting duct in the kidneys, they become less permeable, and less water is reabsorbed into the blood. More water is lost, and your urine becomes more dilute. So what I mean by that is that so now that you are having less, let's just replace this more with less. If you have less ADH, therefore it means there will be less permeability. And if you have less permeability, it means the walls, these walls here, are not going to allow the water to move out and into the blood vessels, because already you have more water in the blood vessels. Maybe it's cold, maybe you are not exercising, or you are drinking too much water. Therefore your blood is going to try to reduce the water by removing it from your body. That's why you go to the toilet a lot to urinate. So more water, instead of being moving out of the collecting tubule or the distal tubule into the blood vessels, more water will be excreted out of the ureter and urethra, and therefore the water will return back to normal. So let's go back to our diagram and see how we can best explain it with a simplified diagram. Now what happens? Number one, water level will increase in this case, and if the water level increases, the pituitary gland will therefore secrete less ADH, and less ADH from the, remember, before it secretes the less ADH, the osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, they detect the low or the decrease, or sorry, and they detect the increase in water levels, and that increase after being detected, therefore your hypothalamus will send impulses to the pituitary gland to do what? To secrete less ADH. Then less ADH will cause the walls of the distal tubule as well as the collecting duct to be less permeable. And if it is less permeable, it means more water won't be reabsorbed, meaning more water will be lost through the urethra and no water will go into the blood vessels. Therefore water will decrease, and back to normal.